when agents say, and agents will go into listing appointments and say this, I'm going to get you on Zillow, is a disgraceful statement.
If you're not getting educated about local and national real estate market conditions, news, policy changes, anything real estate related, you're doing yourself and your client base a disservice. This is the Knowledge Brokers Podcast. I'm Tom Toole here with Lisa Chinati and Byron Lazine, and we have got some killer topics to cover today. We're going to go over the executive order signed by President Trump to give some relief on housing costs and affordability. There's a lot to unpack there. We also have Rocket Mortgage launching a website, rocket.com, and it looks like they're getting into the portal game. But first, Byron did a webinar with Matt Curtis from Alabama, killer agent, had Zillow come on about the Zillow Showcase listings, and you put out a tweet and a chart from their investor deck, and from what I understand, got a visceral reaction from agents. So I want to hear what happened. I didn't tune into the webinar. Tell me what went on.
So we had a BAM webinar this week. The new way to get listings in 2025. That was the title of the webinar.
Okay.
The tweet that you're referring to, which we'll put up here, that I posted on Instagram, was in direct response to the reactions that I've had, that I got on the webinar in the comment section. The webinar was, there was a lot of people on the webinar. It's a BAM webinar, obviously. So, we get a lot of people. This is an NAR webinars where nobody shows up. There's people showing up. So I'll tell you, and I like it. I like the, when somebody doesn't like something, I want to know about it immediately in the comments or whatever. BAM has historically, obviously, because we're always doing the right thing, we don't get a lot of like haters in the comments. I like it. It kind of is, it makes content fun. It makes this business fun a little bit. But the comments that I saw that were railing against Zillow in this webinar, they were deranged. And that's why I'm calling this the Zillow.
That's a strong word.
They were deranged comments. That's why I'm calling it the Zillow derangement syndrome. And I'll explain what I mean by that, but I will take a step back here. So the webinar was focused on being able to go into a listing appointment and increase your chances on winning the listing. And so that's what we want, right? One, we got to generate more listing appointments as agents. Number two, we need to increase conversion on listing appointments. So there's certain things that every agent is going to talk about at a listing appointment. Like, let's name a couple together. One of those in 2025 would be professional photography. Yeah. In 2012, 2013, 2014, when I went to a listing appointment and I laid it out for a seller on the table, like, here's the professional photos that I'm doing, and here's what 9 out of 10 homes on the MLS are doing, and they weren't doing professional photography, I was signing listings automatically on that. It actually was a difference. But today, the majority of agents in a town, their competitors are using the same photographer that they are. Okay. So a lot of them are using the same photographer. Now, there is a way you can actually, and I'll go, with one of my good friends out in California, who talks about like describing photography, describing the time of day. Now you're going to, you invest more in the photography on the luxury side, but describing the time of day, the different angles, more photography is better than less. So if you're doing an aerial package and, a traditional package, now you've got more angles to pick from. You can find a better thumbnail. So there are ways, but here's the problem. Most agents go in and say, yeah, I'm going to do professional photography. Yeah, I'm going to get you online exposure. Everybody says they're going to do online exposure. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm going to get you featured on my website. You're going to be on Zillow. You're going to be on realtor.com. Being on Zillow, being on realtor.com, when agents say, and agents will go into listing appointments and say this, I'm going to get you on Zillow, is a disgraceful statement. Every
Tell us how you
seller,
really feel.
every homeowner in America can get themselves on Zillow for free, or if they want to run it through the MLS, they can pay $500 to an entry company who will enter it onto MLS and feed it onto Zillow. I'm going to get you on Zillow is just lazy and stupid. Now, what this webinar was about being able to say, hey, everybody you've interviewed, they probably said they're going to get you on Zillow. By the way, you can do that yourself. Here's how. But do you actually want somebody who understands everything about the portal? And I put these on my Instagram story, Haley. 62% of online web traffic for consumers on real estate portals is going to Zillow. That 9% bucket, that's all of ours. Everybody's brokerage website is dumped into that 9%. Yeah. So Remax, Chinati Realty, One Team, Ravis, the big Berkshire Hathaway, Compass, that 9% across the country is every single broker's little tiny, small, miniature website. Then you've got Zillow at 62, you got realtor.com number 2. You've got Redfin, you've got Homes, right? That's where, and 6 out of 10 buyers are using Zillow. Now, look at the other chart. Consumers are Googling Zillow more than they're Googling your industry name. Mm-hmm. Consumers are Googling Zillow more than real estate. And so these are actually just facts. What I'm saying is just factual stuff. Okay. I'm just like, now what I had somebody DMing me. I'm not going to put them on blast. We had a great conversation actually back and forth. I think we found some common ground on this, but I had somebody DMing me like, yeah, but you don't always have to say nice things about Zillow. Like what I just said is are those nice things about Zillow, or is that just the reality of decades of brokers not being able to understand consumers and Zillow building a bigger brand than all of them? Is it nice things, or is it just the reality? Help me out. Knowledge Brokers, thanks for joining the pod today. We're going to get you right back to this episode. If you want to help support BAM and join the thousands of agents transforming their business, join the BAMX community. Use Knowledge Brokers, the link down below. Got a little special deal for you. Use Knowledge Brokers, link down below. Now back to the pod.
Lisa, answer the question.
I say it's the reality, and it's interesting because we all had a conversation about this earlier, and I think we've got some differing takes on how we approach it in market. But I mean, if you say real estate to the average consumer, they don't think of, to your point, they don't think of Coldwell Banker, they don't think of anything anymore. And we either have to lean in and accept it and figure out how to exploit that, or
they're Googling the word. Why are they Googling the word Zillow more often than the word real estate? I'll tell you why. Because when they're saying, hey, remember that house we were looking, like, what is that house again? I think it was 123 Main Street. And then they're typing in 123 Main Street and then Zillow. So in one word, the way they search, they're adding Zillow so that listing populates, because the user experience, the brand of Zillow is so powerful. These are not nice things. And this is where agents were just going. When I say Zillow derangement syndrome, it's like when people talk politics and they black out, they start screaming and spitting about how bad this person is or that side is or whatever. And that's the reaction that some agents are having on Zillow. And so here's what's happening in the disservice to customers and clients. When you go into a listing appointment, and if you have that reaction online, then that is going to be something that people are going to feel on the listing appointment. Hey, I'm going to get you on Zillow, but Zillow's really, they're dumb. Their estimates are off. They have misinformation. They're fake news. Whatever the case you want to say on these listing appointments, the consumer is sitting there saying, what is this person like? My buyer's probably, I'm looking for a buyer. I'm a seller. My buyer's probably going to come through Zillow And obviously there's steps between obviously finding the property online and Zillow, as opposed to an agent that eloquently explains, hey, it's really that first photo is really the first viewing of the property, like the ability to click and drive up views and drive up saves, because consumers, one of the things that they look at the most on a Zillow listing is actually views and saves. How many buyers have you heard talking about, or maybe when you're shopping on your own, how much of a discussion have you had around, wow, look at how many people are viewing that property and how many people are saving that property? And, one thing that I did, I took, on this webinar, because we were talking about Zillow Showcase and the ability to go into a listing appointment and ask a seller saying, hey, like how much are you looking at views and saves? Well, yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that we look at the most. And that is one of the things consumers look at the most. How many people are viewing it? How many people are saving it? The FOMO, the social media experience of a Zillow listing. Imagine being able to go into a listing and saying, hey, here's one listing that I posted without Zillow Showcase. And I did this as an example in this webinar. I had 2 listings in our new development High Street in Connecticut. One of them was 2.2 million and one of them was 1.8. They're the same square footage. One of them has a little bit better view, but 2.2 million and 1.8 on square footage. And when you can't really see exactly what the view is online, you would think the views and the saves would be the same. The 2.2 million we put on Showcase, the 1.8 million we didn't put on Showcase. The views and saves were double. And in this town that I'm talking about in Connecticut, less than 5% of your buyers are going to be over $1 million. So this is super luxury for that market. And we drove way more views, way more saves. Now we sold, we're almost down. These are the last 2 units we have out of 60 plus units. One of the reasons we're doing Showcase, every builder wants more. What else are you going to do? What else are you going to do? So can you actually show me that you're increasing traffic to the property? This is one of the ways. Now, we had a really great year last year selling some the remaining units that we had. Were we getting those leads from Showcase? No. But when we go to I'll just say it. No, not really, but when we go to an appointment now and we have case studies of, I actually have a strategy to increase your views and your saves on the platform that 6 out of 10 buyers are using, when nobody else you're talking to has a strategy. That's something of value that you're bringing to the seller, where you can actually show them what online exposure means and how to increase it. And I don't think, and listen, I don't think if you're not set up for it, you should be a flex partner or a premier agent partner and generate buyer leads from Zillow. I think it's right for some people and not right for other people, and it's right for some markets, not right for other markets. And I don't think anybody should buy, Showcase that isn't, going to use it in the listing appointment. That's the whole point of it, really, is to use it in the listing appointment in that way. What I do think every agent should understand is how to break down everything Zillow's doing, or your competition will use it against you, how to eloquently talk to a seller about the benefits and how you're going to make their property, where 62% of buyers are finding homes, how you're going to make their property stand out in a meaningful way through the Zillow app. Because when you rail against it and say it's not that meaningful to a seller, you sound like somebody, this weekend at a birthday party or something, saying, hey, everybody should stop using Amazon. They're like a big corporation and they just they don't have good information and they're not good to people. And I don't like Amazon. Everybody would look at you and be like, are you insane? In 12 hours, I get my package every time on autopilot. Do you have a solution for me? I mean, what's your solution outside of Amazon? So some agents are right now saying, I want more listings, but I don't want to create content and a brand on social. And I don't want to pay corporations like Zillow and Realtor.com. It's okay, well, I don't have a magic wand to make you get more connections naturally in your market. This is one strategy to be able to go in to a listing appointment and separate yourself, along with, hey, I already have these many people in my Rolodex, and I've already called them and told them about your property. I've already shot a video instead of a promise of doing a video. Like, going into the listing appointment with stuff done and actually not be just saying, I do professional photography. I get you on Zillow. I get you on the MLS. Man, you wonder why you don't have a lot of listings. If you're in that camp and it's not people listening to this pod, well, it's because you're saying dumb stuff that is table stakes and the homeowner can do themselves, as opposed to, here's the separation that I provide.
Well, look, you're going to have a real hard time getting listings if that's your plan. And I'm a big believer in confronting the brutal facts in any business. You just laid out the facts, Byron, that Zillow is here. You've got to deal with them. We've made a lot of money on Zillow. It's started a lot of great agents' careers on our team. And, the funny thing is, you talk about it. People don't like the referral fees, right? Well, then this is the classic agent mistake. I sold 15, 20 homes from this lead source. And you know what? I don't like it anymore. I'm changing my mind, but they've got no proven process to bring in business any other way. They don't want to call their sphere, right? Because they're nervous. They feel like they're selling them something. They don't want to make phone calls, but they want to take leads and convert. So when you're running a business, you've got to look at cash flow. You've got to look at how much income am I bringing in? And Zillow's a viable way to do that and a great way to get started in this business. I know we all use it to launch a lot of brand new agent careers that are selling 20, 30, 40 homes, making six figures in take-home income. The other way you're going to have a hard time getting listings, and Byron, you hit the nail on the head here. If you're in a competitive listing appointment and you go in and you just kind of go in and, we're going to get it on Zillow, exactly what you said, the table stakes, then you interview against someone like me. And I walk in there and I say, hey, most agents have a 3-point plan. They're going to put a sign up, they're going to put it on the internet, and they're going to wait for somebody to show up. Here's everything we do differently. From, you talk about photo sales, right? I said that's the first sale we got to make, is getting someone from their phone, their iPad, their computer into your house, right? That involves video. Most agents don't use video. They don't believe in it. Well, there's ways that it works, right? And you've got to be able to explain that. What else are you doing to drive traffic? What's your launch plan look like? Is it just popping up on the MLS and Zillow? Because that's pretty basic, like you said. And you're going to have a hard time on competitive listing appointments. So if you can't understand that this isn't going away, right? It's something you're going to have to deal with. And some people want to hate on it and complain about it. There's two ways to deal with a company like Zillow. One is acknowledge them. They're a big force in the business. We've partnered with them and it's helped our business grow tremendously, but it's also just one component. You can't be solely reliant on that. And that's where a lot of agents make the mistake. Or you can hate on them and complain and do nothing about it. And that sounds like what the reaction was on the webinar. Those people are, they're part of Club 87, right? They're going to be out of the business. They're playing defense, not offense. And there's ways to win in spite of Zillow. Zillow's going to be there. They're going to do their thing. Tom Ferry told us this when like Flex launched and the fees went up and all that stuff. Zillow's going to Zillow, Lisa. We've got to do what's best for our businesses. And we were talking about that today on our accountability call. So I totally agree with you on this.
I think most people listening to this pod probably shouldn't buy products from Zillow, or maybe some people should and some people shouldn't. And people are like, Byron, you just say too many nice things about Zillow. By the way, the first article I ever published on nowbam.com, I got a call from Zillow executives. They hated it because I said Zillow's little dirty Zillow's hidden, or no, Zillow's obvious and dirty little secret, I think was the headline of the article. You can look it up on nowbam.com. I believe that was the title. I said, they're just going to continue to dive in and be an acting, operating broker. And, 2.5 years later, 3 years, whatever that's been, I think I hit that one on the head. They still hate it when I say that. So I say some things like that are just obvious. Zillow gets mad at me. I say things that are obvious to an agent, like, hey, being an expert on the biggest brand and biggest portal in the country on real estate listings sounds like a good idea. And agents are like, you're saying nice things about them. No, I'm just saying all the obvious stuff. And people that have an emotion, when you have an emotional reaction like that, like as if it's politics, that's bad for your business. And so whether you're going to be a product consumer or client of Zillow's as a business decision, you better be able to know everything about the product inside and out. Because if you're second person at the listing appointment, they say, hey, the first person said they're going to give me Zillow Showcase. They showed me 5 examples of how my views and my saves are going to be up 80% on my listing. And you're coming in there and your thing is, oh no, that doesn't really work. Zillow sucks. They're just gonna be like, this person showed me no proof they had like a comeback that Zillow sucks. Like, don't you just put my coffee down and get out? I'm going to go back to appointment number 1, as opposed to being able to say all the reasons why your plan is better, and being able to articulate exactly what the Showcase product does. That's what that webinar was about. It's like, hey, do you have an actual plan going in there to talk about how do you increase online exposure? Not just getting and slapping something on the internet. Go ahead, Lisa.
Just cut them off, Lisa. Just cut them off. You got to get it.
No, it's infuriating when people rail against me, but yet
all right.
They don't want to do content. They don't want to invest. They want stuff like, I can't get you a bigger network. I can't make you better looking, and I can't buy you a new car. So
yeah, I get it. And my point is, I think that agents have to embrace that it's here to stay, but then also think about, so leverage it where you can, right? I think once we admit that it is what it is, it becomes super easy to say, how do I exploit it? And this is in recruiting conversations and in the day-to-day building of my business. One of my favorite lines is, yeah, Zillow's going to make a lot of money from us. We're going to make a lot of money from Zillow. We're going to use and abuse them as best we can to help you build your business over the short term, knowing that if you do the right things, you leverage it to build a kick-ass business down the line, just like Tom was saying. I think some of the other things that, to your point, and going back to the topic about Google, thinking about once we admit this, right? Once everybody accepts it and understands it, we use that to generate business that's non-Zillow. So one of our pay-per-click strategies, here's a gem for everybody listening, is our keywords are the misspellings of Zillow, right? Zillow with one L and Zillow without a W on the end. And we generate a lot of pay-per-click volume. And killer side of it, if you ever ask my Flex rep, we have one of the highest rates of rejected leads from exemptions from paying the Flex fees, because we generate a lot of the leads before and have them in our database and are able to keep two-way communication, great systems for identifying them. But that's one of the strategies that we use to kind of beat Zillow at their own game. And the only way it works is by accepting that it is what it is. Consumers rely on it. And how do we start to take advantage of it?
Well, and I understand everyone does say that, like, it is what it is, but it also is what it is also a great thing for consumers. I mean, like, Ricky Carruth actually had a great comment on the Instagram post that I made. He said, because of Zillow, agents sell more houses in less time by removing the helping the buyer search for homes step out of the process. Now, I totally agree with what he's saying there. Like, for them to have access to all the information has been such a game changer for those 13%, that Club 13 that Tom was talking about, Club 87, Club 13, the 13% of actually people that stay in the business. It's been a huge time saver, and it's empowered the customer. Now, what people are going to say, well, yeah, but Byron, Zillow's got such bad information. Well, that's where you, as the expert, are able to help educate the consumer. But just the access to all the properties has been a huge game changer. Now, I also strongly, if you listen to this pod for a long time, believe that, and NAR shows this stat, 50% of buyers want their agent to help find the home. So they're seeing, they're finding more online, and they want the agent to be a part of that process as well. But if you're having to find all the homes, or just add more on top, add some side dishes to the main entree of them looking on Zillow or Realtor.com or wherever they're looking, it does save the agent a lot of time and helps you focus in on what's really important, which is educating them on the differences of what they're seeing online.
I got nervous there because we just had a 20-minute rant on Zillow, and Byron said NAR, and I was like, "Oh no, here goes the next 20 minutes."
Here we go. I'm just going to tap out. I'm going to go make some phone calls.
Listen, it's just I don't understand. I actually see from agents a more deranged reaction from them when Zillow is brought up than NAR, which to me, I mean, I think it would be more of the opposite of holding NAR accountable. Like when I say deranged, do people get mad about NAR and, $350 bottles of wine and, wives on planes that have nothing to do with the association and sitting first class and $50 million media? But people get upset about it. They say it's ridiculous. My dues are going to this, but people black out when they talk about Zillow as if, Zillow has done something directly to them. This is just part of your business, and you need to be the expert on all their products, whether you're going to be a client or not. And I guess I'll just leave it there. And listen, if you have a plan to increase views and saves on somebody's home, it's a pretty obvious thing to talk about in a listing appointment. It's effective. When I'm going to a listing appointment, any agent going to a listing appointment, all you should be thinking about doing is, how do I improve my conversion chance? How do I prove to them that I'm already getting to work and I have strategies that actually are impactful? So,
well, there's another side to this too, and that people who do use Zillow as a lead pillar in their business, here's the mistake: they sell them a home, they stop nurturing them. There's so much opportunity in client acquisition afterwards. If you do a really great job with a buyer, buyers are much more likely to refer you than a seller because there's a lot more face time with a buyer, right? Like you're with them a lot more. A seller, it's more, I don't want to say transactional, but you're not seeing them as much. There's like phone calls and conference calls and that sort of stuff. So the missed opportunity for the people that lose their mind over Zillow is, this is the cost of client acquisition. You want to spend money on direct mail, that costs money too, and that's a way to get. But there's no referral fees, but you have a lot of cash outlay up front, right? You want to run Google ads, like Lisa's talking about. There's cash outlay up front. Realtor.com has a mix of products, so you've either got to spend money to make money, or you've got to put in a ton of sweat equity. And agents don't see the long-term value in keeping their clients in-house. The very first Zillow lead I got has turned into 8 different transactions. I can count them all. And these people now, like their daughters are in school with my son. Like they're this raving fan base right in the area that I live in. I would have never met them if it wasn't for Zillow. And I paid for the lead. This was a while ago. And that's what happened. So the agents that want to complain about this, I would argue, hey, show us your database and show us how often you're working the people that you know, that you've closed, and that you helped. Because we know what the NAR statistics are, Byron and Lisa, that 88% of buyers would use their agent again, but less than 20% do. And it comes back to, your year 3, year 4, year 5 in the business. You can start to organically generate a lot more. Most people just don't want to do it. And they're afraid, and they have all this story in their head. So they'd rather pay up front, and this is the problem with Zillow. In the point of view of the people that are losing their mind on Byron's webinar, and just in general, because there is this anti-Zillow sentiment, but there's things you can do about it. Like Zillow's going to be what they are, but you can do something about it. You've got to make that choice. And this is the problem I have with the folks you're talking about, is they're choosing not to do the thing that can actually stop it. And they just want to bitch and complain about everything else. Like, that doesn't fly with me.
I could care less if you're a client of Zillow. Honestly, I get nothing out of that. So I don't give a shit. What I care about is this industry being, the agents in this industry being more able to connect with customers and clients in a meaningful way, and pushing this industry forward into reality, and knowing the education and the knowledge that is necessary to really connect with more customers. And, Matt Curtis, which you guys all know Matt.
Very smart
he was
guy.
on the webinar with me. He's in Alabama. He's an independent teamridge, like Elisa set up. 700 plus sales last year in Alabama. Does not do what some agents tell me. Like, man, Bam's got so much content on, how to do this on social media and how to, grow a brand on social. And that just doesn't feel like me. I'm not good on the camera. I don't want to be on camera all that time. And, this was a very obvious strategy. Matt he puts out some good videos, but he doesn't have a social media following, and he's not building a huge brand on social. Matt's I'm going to dominate on email. I'm going to have my billboards, and I'm going to have products from lead generators that I can leverage in my market. And, if you got to be willing to invest in one or the other, or, in best case scenario, both in today's day and age. Go ahead, Lisa. I'm sorry.
Let's just switch topics.
Well, let's go into.
This is relevant. So I want to get Lisa's take on this, because I
Yeah.
would argue Lisa knows the portals better than anybody of the three of us here.
And this is my whole point about the previous discussion. Know, like what we're about to talk about, know that it's coming up, know everything about it, know your stuff inside and out.
So Lisa, now we got Rocket Mortgage, right? And this is another company that people have a negative, visceral reaction to, because they've had, I mean, I personally have had many loans like fall through with them because they don't vet people properly and all that. They're now, and they've tried this before. And they're now launching rocket.com, and it's putting Rocket Mortgage and Rocket Homes on the same platform. And it says, help find your dream home. I think we're going to see more of this because they do control a lot of market share, whether we like them or not. What are your observations on this? Because in my view, agents got to be ready for this stuff.
100%. So it's fascinating. I spent some time on the website last night when it was after I read the article and kind of became aware of it. Have you guys spent any time on the website yet?
Yeah, I have.
Okay.
I have not.
Okay. So it's super interesting, right? It's clearly all about finding a dream home. No doubt, like you said, they are going in to compete with the Zillows, the realtor.coms, the homes.com, and that kind of stuff. What I don't know is what they've got for traffic. Clearly, they're trying to pull what they were getting off of Rocket Mortgage. Now, if you think about it,
Rocket Homes. They had Rocket Loans and Rocket Homes, two different sites. They're now combined to one. So Rocket Homes was the portal side. Mortgage can send traffic too, just based on those. That's probably, I guess, the point you're making is that more of the traffic is people.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because I think, like, if I think about it from this perspective, right? How many times do you guys get a lead from Zillow? You get one from realtor.com, excuse me, or even from the folks that you meet at open houses, sometimes even referrals that come to you from past clients or whatever, and you say, hey, have you already connected with a loan officer? Are you pre-approved? I see Rocket Mortgage stuff in my database all the time. Consumers go there, right? So I think that they're trying to make a play on it. What we also know, and the thing that we've all talked about, is mortgage is still one of the industries that, I mean, there's a lot of money to be made in mortgage when it's done right? Like, we're seeing mortgage applications come back. We're losing stake on it. You see Zillow going to it. They want to push revenue through ZHL, through their enhanced markets. They're pushing it. We talked about it this morning. It's going to be super interesting because out of the big players, realtor.com has been the one that have said, we're not going to make a claim for mortgage, right? We're not going to push any consumers to anything around that. And so I think it's clear that there's going to become clearly a referral fee. They're going to continue to farm these out to agents, brokers, team leaders who are willing to kind of keep the connection and keep it growing. I spoke to somebody down in Georgia the other day who was digging in. I'm 90% sure, I'm going to confirm with him, I think he was digging in with Rocket to see if they could get them to fund a portion of their realtor.com spend. So,
interesting.
Yeah, some fascinating stuff kind of shaking out there, but definitely something that everybody should stay aware of. The site is super slick. I clicked through a bunch. I spent a bunch of time on there. It's interesting because the other side of it is they've got the same buttons that you expect to see with
that's what I thought.
A real estate website: find, buy, and sell. And so and refinance, obviously, as well, because they're clearly making a play on some of the lending stuff. But it'll be fascinating because what comes into my head at first kind of glance is, I think that they are a little bit uniquely positioned with that refinance button so prevalent, because we know often sellers start by exploring whether they refinance, and through a correct conversation sometimes end up becoming sellers as well. So is there a little bit of a play to be made to leverage some of that refinance stuff directly into their own portal on the listing lead side of things? And when you click on sell, excuse me, the button there is actually list with Rocket, which
Agents, past clients don't exist. Unless, of course, you're retiring in 2025, then consider your clients in the past. But if you're building a business for the future, Your clients are your clients. This is where Mosaic comes in, the client experience operating platform for you to manage the client experience. See, cupcakes are cute, it's a nice thing to do, but it won't keep a client tied to you for life. It's not going to bring the value to their home living, home ownership experience for years to come. CRMs work for lead generation, lead capture, and lead communication, while Mosaic helps you transform how you manage those relationships moving forward with the value that they actually need in their home ownership lifespan. So don't wait, check out mosaic.io or find the link down below.
No,
yeah, they're like some, I don't know what agents are getting these leads, but agents are getting these leads. I just actually clicked on one of my team's listings in Connecticut, and on the listing, it says $10,000 closing credit on the listing.
Yep. Yeah, it says it right here.
Okay. Like, I don't know. I'm not giving 10. I want to be clear. We are not giving $10,000. But Rocket is promoting that on our listing. And then when you click into the listing details,
what's the price on the listing?
1.175 million.
And so, because I'm just curious, were you guys realtor.com partners when when I first rolled out MVIP, realtor.com had a program where they basically gave the referral fee that we were paying to, or a portion, I don't remember what it was, but they actually wrote the consumer a check for a percentage of the commission, even through MVIP. Were you guys involved in it then?
I was a little bit. It didn't really impact us. We didn't see a lot of it, but it was happening for sure.
But it was on MVIP. So the interesting thing is,
I was on MVIP when it was happening. Yes.
So I wasn't actually, now that I think about it, I wasn't paying referral fees. It was the very hefty amount of money that we paid to realtor.com up front. But what they found is it didn't create stickier leads. And because it was like, hey, if you buy the home with this agent that we've connected you to through the MVIP program, we will cut you this check on the back. And they sunsetted it, they claimed, because they didn't find that it actually increased conversion or stickiness rate with the consumer.
We like once in a while, a consumer would say, hey, what, do you know anything about this? And like, we kind of didn't. So it was like, the agent would be like, no, not really. But it rarely ever came up where they were really kind of making that step to connect with an agent. They were connecting with an agent to get a home,
right?
Not to get a discount. I mean, Redfin's learned this over the decades. And that's why they're completely switching models right now. But Rocket is just dipping their toe into this. I mean, this site, rocket.com, looks like they called up our good friends over at like a Sierra Interactive and were like, hey, I want a website. I mean, it looks like anybody's website right now, from an agent IDX perspective. And I think Sarah does a great job. It's what I actually use. So I'm using that as an example. There's other IDX platforms out there. There's nothing that what Rocket is doing that is so unique about the user experience on searching for homes. What is unique about Rocket is the potential distribution that they're going to have. And this is why I've spent time, like Lisa did last night, clicking around the website and understanding. And from your own perspective, like, okay, what's a good, headline for your website? Well, they're going with find your dream home here, right? And they've got the search tab right underneath it, and then buy a home for them, refinance rates, but find, buy, sell at the top. Like, these are buttons and, phrases you probably want on your website. You don't see Rocket having their headline be, number one mortgage company in the US. They'd be true if they said that, but it just doesn't resonate with a consumer.
Nobody cares.
So if you've got number one agent in in Whoville, okay, well, the Grinch might care when he's coming down for his groceries, but not too many people are going to care that that's your claim to fame at the top of the website. It's what's in it for me, the consumer. For them, it's find your dream home. And they're coming out of it. The other interesting part about this is they're coming at this from, we've got mortgage. We write the most mortgages in the country. And now we're going to dip our toe into generating leads for agents and start to monetize that side of the business. Zillow generates the most leads of any portal. And what are you seeing them do? The other end of the spectrum here, dipping their toe in with Zillow Home Loans, and they want some of the mortgage business. So opposite ends of the spectrum, but heading directly for each other could be Rocket and Zillow on a collision course. And what is that doing? And this is why maybe agents have derangement syndrome against corporations. It is squeezing some agents who have great mortgage relationships to some degree, right? Like Zillow going in and doing, and my friends at Zillow, this will be one of, listen, no, what I'm about to say, everybody with Zillow derangement syndrome is going to not even, it'll go right over their head. But I'll get phone calls and texts from Zillow people saying, Byron, I don't like it when you talk dirty like that. We don't like that over here at Zillow. Zillow pushing.
Lisa, your face when he said talk dirty was classic. Can we screenshot that, please?
Screenshots.
That was fantastic.
Lisa's the one that talks. She talks dirty to everybody, just not on the pod.
Yes.
Two faces.
When Zillow right now, what they're doing with Zillow Home Loans, being very aggressive in enhanced markets with their partners, what it's doing is their partners are already paying a significant part of the compensation to Zillow to generate those leads. It's a extremely valuable lead, so there's a high price of compensation for that. But now with Zillow coming in and driving Zillow Home Loans and enhanced markets the way they are, it is squeezing the agent's compensation even more because the agent already has a relationship with a lender where they're going in on 50-50, marketing, or they're doing some type of JV and they have a lender company, or they have a lender in-house with their brokerage who's bringing, other shared, compliant benefits, and some of that business going over to ZHL, Zillow Home Loans, it will squeeze the agent. Now, I don't have derangement syndrome over that. It's a business decision and a business model, but you are going to see Zillow and Rocket continue to, point at each other, and obviously realtors involved in that, and homes, and maybe Redfin as well. But this is not a surprise from Rocket.
Well, like big companies have done this forever, right? Like, I mean, you have, locally we've got a large Berkshire Hathaway office. They got Trident Loans and Trident Mortgage. I mean, this has always been the play, is grab more of the affiliated businesses. So it's not a surprise. I think Byron, your point is spot on. Is what agents need to realize is that if you're reliant on these companies for your business, and this is, Lisa, we talk about this we were talking about today, right? It's all about, do you have enough lead pillars that are going to make you more profitable, that you have these relationships you can continue to cultivate? And you've got to look at, like, this is a component of your business. I mean, if you're in a Zillow Home Loans or a Zillow enhanced market right now, that's something where the issue is getting forced. And that's okay. That's what we signed up for. I'm not going to complain about it. I knew what I was getting into, but that's going to affect other parts of the business. And that's why you got to, like, you talk about brand building. We were talking about, like, getting the word out about who you like. That's the only way to win on the local level, is to go attract your own business. And I think agents really need to wake up to this. You can't hide under a shell and hope your sphere is going to call you when they're ready. I mean, there's people that say they're attractors. Well, guess what? I'm a hunter and an attractor, and that's the person that's going to win in this kind of environment.
Yeah, just to circle back, looking at here, Byron. So the $10,000 credit comes from Rocket Mortgage. So they're saying that it's $10,000 from Rocket Mortgage. On the selling side, they're offering 0.5% back when you list with a partner agent. The other interesting thing is, I didn't know this. I just looked at this, that Rocket has partnered with forsalebywowner.com. Do you remember that from way back in the day?
Used to go cherry pick listings off of there. Great website.
So they'll allow you to create a free listing with their quote partner, forsalebywowner.com. And then obviously all the other, the fine print, when you really scroll to the bottom and read all the fine print on it. It's fascinating. I encourage everybody who's listening to the pod to go take a look, because it's just some insight into what's coming.
You got to know what you're getting into.
Yeah. Well, one thing I'll say about the future of stuff like this, Rocket, and I'll put Zillow in this category. Realtor.com doesn't do this. This really strong driving of like, we're going to connect you with an agent and we're going to take care of your mortgage and we're going to, we're basically going to do it all under one house. Realtor.com doesn't play in that space. So I'll just kind of focus in here on like a Zillow and a Rocket. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out, because both companies right now appear to be really driving a strong offer, I'll say, at where we want to do your mortgage and we want to connect you with the agent. And there is a dance there of compliancy that is going to be important to make sure is done right from these two companies, or there could very well be, real estate's been a target of litigation. There could very well be an opening there for some attorney. We've seen it with agents now, obviously, to say, oh, we did it with NAR and some of these big brokerages. How about if we go after the really big dogs, which have, Zillow hasn't been named or Rocket hasn't been named. Got to be careful with being compliant when you're driving these types of, I want it all under my roof.
Speaking of I want it all,
yep,
we had an executive order.
Yeah, Lisa
that got signed.
Automatically wants a segue, so she doesn't get a call from Zillow.
Well, so we had a new president get inaugurated on Monday, and there was 100 executive orders. They just had them stacked up. He's signing them. He's taking questions from the press, and one of them was to provide emergency relief to defeating the cost of living crisis, and specifically mentioned on housing. So here was the White House memo. Byron, I know you talked about this on, I believe, the hot sheet. So I hereby order the heads of all executive departments and agencies to deliver emergency price relief consistent with applicable law to the American people and increase the prosperity of the American worker. This shall include pursuing appropriate actions to lower the cost of housing and expand housing supply, eliminate unnecessary administrative expenses and rent-seeking practices that increase healthcare costs, and eliminate counterproductive requirements that raise the cost of home appliances, create employment opportunities for American workers, including drawing discouraged workers into the labor force, and eliminate harmful, coercive climate policies that increase the cost of food and fuel. They had three things that were really in the executive order: reducing regulatory burdens, restoring purchasing power, and expanding housing supply. The purchasing power one was interesting because apparently the Biden administration's regulatory policies added nearly $50,000 in costs per household. And Trump's first-term agenda, he cut these costs by $11,000 per household. That jumped out at me, as well as the regulatory requirements. Lisa, we already heard what Byron said on the hot sheet. What do you think about all this?
I think it's just going to be a long slog. I don't think that there's. I think it needs to. It's going to have to take shape. I think it's a great headline. I think it's super catchy, but it's not immediate. It's not going to be overnight, and there's a lot that still needs to go into this before anybody puts too much stock into it.
When you look at just housing on its own, when that 50,000 Biden regulatory per household, extra, that formula that they use, whatever, those are all regulations. And a lot of that has to do with energy. Energy can have a big impact on bringing costs down in a lot of different sectors across the country. There's no question about that. So energy costs is something the federal government can make a real impact on. But the cost of homes in your neighborhood and those regulations and those permits are all a local business. So yeah, there's nothing in terms of your local town, your local city, your suburb that the federal government can do really effectively on the affordability of housing. Energy is something that they can drive. And there's things that the federal government in the last week, you're seeing like, okay, there is a huge impact that the federal government can make with an executive order on what the policies are on the southern border. That is something that the federal government has control of, whether you're obviously for or against that, or whatever the case may be, this administration can do very different things on the southern border than the last administration can do, because the federal government controls it. The federal government doesn't control the permitting process in your town. And so this executive order is, hey, I want to bring the cost of living down. We all do. But when it comes to housing, that's a local business.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
how do you feel about
this stuff
living on the
takes
Gulf
long.
of America?
Yeah.
So Florida's already started changing a lot of their terminology in the print from Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America. And I think, I don't know. I think so. Maybe my house actually didn't go up. Or didn't go down. I think it went up after the Gulf of America versus I live on the Gulf of America. Sounds house went up in value. I don't know.
My cousin Todd is coming home with T-shirts. He has a house in Bonita Springs, not too far from you, Byron, and it's Uncle Sam sitting on the beach. So
I saw this hilarious clip because yesterday in Naples was the coldest January ever recorded in Naples. I think it was a high of 55 degrees. We're going to be back to the 70s this weekend, thankfully. But coldest January ever for a high of 55. And I saw this guy put out a clip in Florida, northern Florida. There was like a little sprinkle of snow. Yeah. He was in
Pensacola, yeah.
He was in Pensacola where there was some snow. He was obviously a Trump fan. He goes, wow, 2 days in to the Trump administration, this guy's already solved global warming. Unbelievable. And that was pretty funny. I thought that was pretty hilarious.
That's good. That's good. I saw a lot of social media posts. People were like, oh, I thought we'd have $2 gas by now. And I'm like, I think it goes both ways.
So
global warming solved. I mean, what a first couple days here.
So like I said about the Biden and Harris administration, I'll say the same thing about the Trump and Vance administration. There's very little impact that they can make on a local housing market. Real estate's a free market. It should remain a free market. It's going to come down to you getting involved in your local town and city halls of freeing up. I've seen some architects talk about that. We talked about this on the podcast last week with Lance Lambert. Go check that one out, by the way, the one that Lisa missed on us with Lance, where we look at some of those architect comments and quotes from Malibu and California saying, we can get this rebuild done, but Malibu's going to hold up permitting for 3 years. It's going to take longer for us to get permits than it will for us to build the house and build it, the right way for, fire resistant home and all of that kind of stuff. It's the permitting and the local regulations that hold back housing more than anything. And that number that they did put in is true, 25% increased costs on regulations on housing, but that's local issues. And that ties into the builder holding onto the land for 2 or 3 years if it's a builder project. And that's where you see costs being, going up. But there's a lot of things federal government just can't do.
Yeah, long slog. Not going to be overnight. All right, I got to bail. I have a hard stop.
Yeah, let's wrap it up. Thanks, guys.
See you next week.
Have a great weekend.
Go Birds.
Oh, yeah, sure.